What's up guys, Ryan here from Mud Gunner. Today we're going to be talking about my night vision rifle setup and just some tips that I'd recommend for people that might just be getting into night vision. Night vision is a lot of fun, but there's also a lot of info and knowledge that comes with it, and I've been learning a lot over the last year. And I figured I'd just show you guys some tips that helped me out, and yeah, let's get into it. So my main rifle setup right now for night vision specifically is my Q Honey Badger, and the reason is this is a 300 blackout. It's suppressed, it's short, it's lightweight. And when I think night vision, I think close range. I'm not thinking, 1,000 yards, 500 yards. I mean, it's nice to be able to know what's that far in the night. But I would say realistically speaking, for most people, if you're going to get into night vision, it's CQB type guns. And obviously you can make it whatever you want. You can do night vision rifle scopes for long range setups. Here in Arizona, you can't do any type of night vision hunting or thermal hunting. So I don't necessarily have a need for that. I'm not saying I wouldn't want it, I just don't have a need for that. So night vision for me is being able to run drills at night with my friends without needing a white light. So that is the main purpose for this gun. I've had this rifle since 2019. I bought it in 2018, but it took 10 months for the tax stamps to clear. But I bought it as soon as it was released, and I really wanted a subsonic suppressed 300 blackout because I knew how quiet they were. And this thing definitely fits the bill. And then as I got into night vision, the dream for it's always kind of been to be a night vision setup. So that's what I've been working on for the last few years. I've posted a bunch of videos of this gun over the years. This is one of my favorite guns, along with my SCAR 16. I feel like I post those two rifles the most, and it's my channel, so I'm gonna keep posting them because I really enjoy them. So yeah, this is a Q Honey Badger. I bought it when it first came out, so mine's gonna look a little bit different than some of the ones out nowadays. So when they first released them, they came with an AR gold trigger. Then they went to Geisley, and now I believe they are using the Q branded trigger, which is literally the best trigger ever made. Looks very similar to this, and I've played with it. It seems nice. This one's got the radian safety selector. I want to say it's like a 70-degree safety. It looks like it's more than that, but I think they claimed it was a 70-degree safety. And then it has a radian charging handle, and I'm kind of bummed they stepped away from the large charging handles because now I believe they do the mediums. I might be mistaken on some of them, but I've seen a lot of the Qs with the medium charging handles. I like the large. And then just other things, like I've seen the buttons slightly different for the stock and whatnot. But yeah, aside from that, they're pretty much the same. This one does have the Q Honey Badger suppressor. The only way to get that is to buy the SD. So if you want to do a setup like this, you have to buy the SD, which is a 2 tax stamp item. But I believe it's worth it, and it keeps it lightweight. This whole setup, the way it sits without a magazine in it, is 7 pounds for an optic, sling, laser, light, suppressor on an AR. So that's pretty cool. The magazine definitely adds some weight because 300 blackout is not light. It's pretty heavy. This isn't even a full mag, but yeah, 300 blackout's a heavy round. So if you have like a whole chest rig of 6 300 blackout mags, you are going to feel the difference on your body, but the gun is very lightweight. So with the way I did this setup is to keep it lightweight, I did an RMR as the optic, so a Trijicon RMR. It's on an American Defense quick detach mount. My sling is a Wells Made Co sling. I don't know what they call this, but it's kind of like a Hawaiian sling, and it looks really good on this gun. I do have this camo wrap. My buddy made this and gave it to me, so I don't have a way for you guys to get one of these, unfortunately, but I'm sure there's others out there. But yeah, it's a camo wrap. I've had this on the gun for years now, but my light and laser setup has kind of changed. Now, this is the only laser I've ever ran on there. This is a Steiner D-Ball I2. So it is just a visible laser and an IR laser. There is no illuminator on here. And I'm going to talk about the pros and cons of that because I do think it's worth noting. And then my light used to be a Surefire Scout light, and now it is the Surefire Vampire. So the Vampire is the one that is set up for IR use, so night vision or a white light. But yeah, so the main topic is going to be night vision. And yeah, so if you get into night vision, one, there's no cheap way to get into night vision. You might get in it less expensive than others, but there's no true cheap way to get into night vision. I think for a PVS 14, I mean, you're gonna spend about $2,000 or more. I have seen some used ones and low grade ones for about 15, but I really don't see you getting into night vision for less than 1,000. Let's put it that way. You could get a killer deal at 1,000 maybe, but I don't see most people getting into it for less than 2. Dual tube, I'd say, is better than just a PVS 14 if you can afford it, but I understand. Like, night vision is very expensive. There's not an easy way to put it. And I wouldn't say get in debt over it, but it is fun to have. And the one thing with the night vision, it's not just the tubes that you're buying, it's all this stuff to make your gun usable. So yeah, when you get into a night vision rifle setup, you can do the passive aiming where your optic is high enough to where you can look through your night vision, and that's fine. I haven't done it that much with this because my face would sit too low really for this. So With this gun, I'm just using the laser and the light as my main source of aiming. I'm not saying I'll never get a higher optic for it, but this is just the current setup. I'm also working on building a 5.56 night vision setup that's more passive, so it's gonna sit higher for me to look through, and I've actually used it. I have an EOTech on a Mark 18. That is my 5.56 night vision setup, and I can look right through that EOTech with my night vision, and it works perfect. So for this gun, my main aiming system would be the laser and an IR light. And the reason why you want a light too is if you are in a pitch black area, having night vision doesn't necessarily mean you'll be able to see. You still need some type of ambient light for night vision to work. That's the basic way of saying it. So, you think night vision lets you see in the dark. Yes, it does, but you still need a little bit of light. If you went in a pitch black room with no lights on and you have night vision, you're not going to see very well. Now, in the city, you're going to see a lot better outside at night because there's a lot of ambient light. But let's say you're in the woods on a moonless night, like under trees, under clouds, it's going to be very hard to see with night vision on unless you have some type of IR light. So that's kind of where this comes into play. And I still believe that a white light on a gun is important. So with this light, I can kind of show you guys here. It is currently on the off setting, but I can twist the head and it'll go from IR, which you can see under night vision, twist it this way, and then I can twist it to white light. So now it's on white light. I leave it off when I'm not using it. So that's just one thing to note if you have a setup like this. Again, this is the Surefire Vampire. And this pressure pad will work my light. So the front button right here works the light. And then the back button works the light and the laser at the same time. So again, this is a Steiner D-Ball i2. It's just the laser. It's not the laser and the illuminator. I believe that is the A3. And they do have like a D2 as well that's bigger, but I think the A3 has the illuminator and it's about the same size as this. So this has 3 settings. It has off, it has visible laser, which is pointing the arrow down, and then it has IR laser, which is pointing the arrow up. And then if I move this cap right here, it'll let me see it. So again, this is gonna be just the light and this is gonna be the light and laser. So just the light, this is light and laser. I don't know if you could see the laser on the phone, but I could see it. Just a green laser. And I would say for a setup like this, the visible laser is kind of worthless. I don't think most people need a laser on their gun because if you don't have night vision, it's not very useful in daylight. One, most of them aren't bright enough to see in the day, and you don't want to just focus on seeing a laser. You want to be able to see, your red dot on your target. It's going to be much faster than I think people realize. So lasers really only come into play with night vision. I'm not going to say they're not fun. Like I have a Surefire X400 pistol light and laser on a Glock. It's fun to play with, but it's not the most practical setup, and they're very expensive for good ones. Cheap lasers are not that great. I know there's a lot of the airsoft stuff out there right now, but again, even if you buy the airsoft stuff for night vision, it's going to shine under night vision. So this is just the laser, and then this is the light that will do white light or IR light, and together it works very well under night vision. And as far as the pressure pad goes, you want to run a pressure pad for both. It's kind of a pain to do it all without it. And I've actually gone through 3 different setups with this alone. So when I first got this light and laser, I was running 2 of these just regular pressure pads, and they each ran from the light and from the D-ball. And I just had them mounted like this. I had 2 of them right here, and I would have to press both at the same time to use them. And that was a pain. It worked, but it was a pain. And then I went from that to this Surefire one. And in my head, I was like, okay, you'll have one that does both. So you don't need 2 pressure pads. You only have 1 pressure pad for the laser and the light. But what I didn't I guess I realized it. I didn't know how much of a pain this would be. One does the light and one does the laser. It's not both at the same time. So to press it, you'd have to hit both at the same time. And it was just very awkward to use on the gun. So I don't think this shines with this setup. Now where this pressure pad is going to shine is if you had a laser that's also an IR illuminator. So like a PEC 15 or the AT PLC, that's like the L3 or the EOTech one, that does laser and light. So what you could do is have a button for a white light and then the other button for your IR laser and illuminator. Because with that, it does both in one. You don't necessarily need a separate IR flashlight. So that's where this is going to shine, is if you have an IR flashlight and laser in one and then a visible light on one, because then you can run your visible and then your IR. Just don't get the 2 mixed up, otherwise you'll blind yourself or someone else under night vision. But then I finally switched to this. This is the Unity Taps, and what this does is it does just the light or the light and laser. So this is basically built for a setup like this where you only have a laser and you only have a light. You don't have 2 in 1. And it works very well. it took me going through all these pressure pads to do it. And these aren't cheap. Like, most of them come with this when you buy, well, the laser comes with this, but then you have to buy one for the light. It looks similar to this, but it wasn't the pick rail attached one. It was just the pad. And then the Surefire one is pretty expensive. I think it's like 150 or 200 bucks. So that was kind of annoying to buy it and then it not work very well. And again, I'm using a suppressor wrap here, so this is supposed to attach to a pick rail, but I took the mount off and I just taped it to this because I really like the camo wrap. I have it set up in a way where it's on top, so it works very well. Like, I can just press both. It's very easy to get to, just using my thumb for the light or light and laser. So I like that. And then as far as cable management goes, I'm just using some tape here. And it may not look pretty, but honestly, I don't think it looks bad because you do have to do cable management. I can't stick it under the rail or anything. I have a hot suppressor right here. So it does need to be on the outside, and I'm right-handed, so I want to keep the left side of the gun clear. So when I'm shooting it, it's just right here. My thumb sits right on top if I need to use it. My RMR sees over my laser, so everything works very well. It's balanced, and I know it looks very front heavy, but like, it's not heavy because it's such a light gun. So this works for me. The suppressor and the light are basically butted up next to each other, and yeah, I really like it. Again, when I'm not using it, the light is on the off setting, and so is the laser. So just something, if you run a setup like this, you'll need to remember that. And the other thing with running night vision is, let's say you have night vision, but you need a light. You don't want to just use your gun to be your main source of light. So you do need, most night vision has like a built-in IR illuminator, but they're not very powerful. So what I did, I got a separate handheld Surefire Vampire. So this also is white light, which is what it's on right now. Or I can lift up and twist and it'll go to IR. So IR or white light, it's a little bit of money, but you don't want to shine your rifle at something that's not trying to kill you. You know, if you need to read documents on the table or help your friend look for something under night vision, you don't want to point a gun at them. So you do need some type of IR light that can help you with that. And the built-in illuminator on night vision is not bad, but it's not always ideal. So I do like having a handheld. And I mean, this is separate from my handheld regular light. So I keep this in my night vision bag with my nods because I don't use this for daily carry. I use a standard handheld light. But yeah, this kind of goes in hand with this because, again, you need separate ones. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of the main gist of how I have this set up. Again, I think one thing that would be beneficial, but they are a lot of money, is if you buy a PEC or a specific unit that has an IR light and the IR laser in it, and then a separate white light. Because it ends up being expensive either way. Like, these Surefire Vampires are about 450 bucks, or at least this one was. And then I want to say these were about 1,000. So the one that has the laser and the light in it, I want to say is closer to $2,000. But I think if you're trying to avoid all the pain of like making it work with both, like turning this to visible or turning this to IR, turning that to IR, or you can just literally dedicate this to IR, dedicate this to white light. I think in the end that would be the better setup. It would just be the more expensive setup. So I don't plan on changing this. If I can ever get a Steiner A3 for not a ridiculous amount of money, I might swap that to an A3 and then swap this back just to a white light. But I don't plan on selling this. I would just put it on a different gun. So this setup works really well for me, but I won't say it's the best setup out there. I just enjoy it, and it's very lightweight. Like, this thing weighs nothing. The Surefire light, relatively speaking, weighs nothing. And yeah, it looks very good on the gun. I'm happy with it. But again, just separate IR handheld light would be very beneficial to you. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of the basics of how to set up your gun with an IR laser and light. There's many ways to do it, but this is just a quick course on how I did mine. So thank you guys for watching, and stay tuned for my next video.